Please like this video and subscribe to the channel.
Greetings, family, and welcome back to Raising the Vibe. Thank you so much for joining me for another video. I always appreciate your time and attention. Today, I want to take a look at whether illegal immigrants are being provided with more and greater Second Amendment constitutional rights to possess and use a gun than American citizens are allowed. But as always, before we get into it, I'm going to ask that if you're not a subscriber to the channel, that you please subscribe, that you hit the notification bell if you want to be made aware of every time I upload new content, and that you hit that thumbs up button if you find this video to be informative. So let's take a look at what's going on here. We're going to take a brief look at that decision issued in March by the federal judge in Illinois. We're going to take a look at the laws and conditions and hoops American citizens have to jump through to own a firearm and to carry a firearm. And we're going to discuss whether or not it would appear that illegal immigrants have greater Second Amendment constitutional rights than American citizens. And I can tell you right now that my answer is it seems to be so, and I clearly have a problem with that. But let's look at it so you can make your own decision, and let's see what you think. So first, looking at the federal court case, it's called the United States versus Heriberto Carbajal Flores. That's the best I can do with the pronunciation. Hopefully it's close enough. So for context, let's note that there have been 3 decisions issued in this case because the illegal immigrant has moved 3 different times to have the charges against him dismissed. The first 2 times, the federal judge said, no, I'm not dismissing the charges. But the last time, she found that he was entitled to have those charges dismissed. Now, in that third decision where she dismissed the charges, there are only 8 pages. 8 pages. And the 8th page is a signature page. So really, there are only 7 pages analyzing an issue that is so critical in our country at a time when we are being inundated and overwhelmed with an influx of illegal immigrants. All right. Now, in that third decision, she doesn't mention or go into detail on the facts of the case. So let's hop back to the first decision and look at what exactly did this case involve? What exactly was this illegal immigrant let off the hook for? So looking at the details of that first decision, we can see that this illegal immigrant obviously was not a citizen. He had been living in Chicago since 2002, and the events at issue took place on the night of June 1, 2020, at a time of civil unrest after the death of, or the killing of, George Floyd. Now, this illegal immigrant claims that he saw several men attempting to break into a local shop, and after that, he joined an impromptu group that was an impromptu neighborhood watch to protect this local shop. He didn't own the shop. He didn't allege he knew the owner or he worked at it or anything. The court case says that the illegal immigrant did not assert any connection to the local shop. The immigrant said that around 9:53, one of the other neighborhood watch members handed him a handgun and he took possession of it. The immigrant also claims that at around 10:33, a white police van stopped at the corner and said to him, if you have anything, go get it. He took that to mean that he should arm himself, but obviously he had already armed himself. Now, here are the details that kind of blow my mind. So let me look at this case and paraphrase for you what exactly happened. So the illegal immigrant claims that between 9:30 and 10:40 p.m., he saw approximately 4 vehicles drive by the shop. The occupants of one vehicle yelled out threats. The occupants of another vehicle displayed weapons, namely handguns, and the occupants of the other 2 vehicles sped off from in front of the shop. So the illegal immigrant claimed that at 11:06 p.m., he stepped into the crosswalk. He said that a white car drove through the intersection in which he stood without stopping and slightly swerved to the right, which he took to mean that they were trying to hit one of the group, a person who was in the neighborhood watch group. Apparently, there's video surveillance footage that confirms that. However, this illegal immigrant did not contend that the white car tried to hit him, or that the occupants yelled out any threats or obscenities, or that they possessed or displayed any handguns. Nevertheless, the defendant, this blows my mind. Nevertheless, the defendant pulled the firearm from his pocket and fired 7 shots, claiming that they were warning shots. 7 shots this illegal immigrant fired. The illegal immigrant said that at 11:41, he again pulled out the firearm and attempted to fire multiple times at another car that sped by without stopping or swerving, but the gun did not fire. He then attempted to unjam the gun and fire again, and 2 minutes later, he was arrested. Now, the defendant was charged with illegal possession of a firearm because there's a federal statute that prohibits illegal aliens who are unlawfully in this country from possessing or receiving a firearm. So those are the pertinent facts of the case. So when we're talking about how this judge ultimately ruled and dropped the charges against this illegal immigrant, it's important to keep those facts in mind, because in that little 8-page decision this judge issued, she didn't reiterate those facts. Again, I had to look back to the first case to see what exactly happened here and what exactly are we talking about. So now let's look at the meat of the 8-page decision, the portion where we learn why the judge dismissed the charges against this illegal immigrant. In a nutshell, the government's position was that the illegal immigrant was a non-citizen who is unlawfully in this country and in violation of the federal statute prohibiting him from possessing or receiving a firearm. But the judge looked at 3 factors in dismissing the charges against the illegal immigrant. Number 1, that he had never been convicted of a felony, a violent crime, or a charge involving a firearm. Number 2, that he allegedly received and used the handgun in self-defense and in protection of property at a time of documented civil unrest in the spring of 2020. And before we move on from that, let me just say that as a general rule in this country, we do not authorize the use of lethal force to protect property, unless perhaps if that property is your actual residence and you're in it and someone's attempting to come into it. But just the use of lethal force to protect property, we do not place human life and property at the same levels in the legal system in this country. Let me also point out that based on the facts that we saw in the first decision in this case, he did not use that gun in self-defense. Nobody attempted to harm him. Nobody attempted to hit him. There's no allegation that anybody shot at him. So that whole second basis, in my opinion, is invalid. And then the third basis on which she ruled in his favor was that he consistently fulfilled all of the conditions of his stipulated release. He remained employed throughout, and he hadn't gotten any new warrants or arrests. And on the basis of those three factors, this judge ruled that that illegal immigrant's facts and circumstances did not support a finding that he poses a risk to public safety such that he cannot be trusted to use a weapon responsibly and should be deprived of, quote, his Second Amendment right to bear arms in self-defense, end quote. To me, that whole analysis is suspect because as we determined, he didn't utilize the gun in self-defense. Okay? So what Second Amendment right to bear arms in self-defense are we talking about? Because that does not fit the facts of this particular case. And of course, the judge who issued this ruling was Judge Sharon Jackson Coleman, which if you're American, and particularly if you're a Black American, you know that that's a Black woman. So we've seen that around the country, these Black liberal Democrats fighting harder for illegal immigrants than I've ever seen them fight for Black American citizens in this country. Now let's compare that to the laws that American citizens have to comply with, to the hoops that American citizens have to jump through in order to own and utilize a gun in this country. And what I want to point out before I move on is not only was this illegal immigrant in possession of a firearm, he actually used it to shoot at people who did not shoot at him or attempt to harm him. Now you tell me, what Black male in the city of Chicago could be in possession of a firearm without any documentation for that firearm and shoot 7 times at a car that drove by, that did not attempt to hit him, that did not display any weapons, did not say anything to him, did not shoot at him? I'll wait not too long because I don't want to drag the video out, because we all know the answer is he would be in jail and there would be no dropping of any charges against him, because that's how the American system works. So why is this illegal immigrant entitled to some different result? Okay, now looking at the way laws are set up with regard to firearms in America, there are several categories. Some states require citizens to have a license or permit before they can purchase a firearm. Others require citizens of America to register their firearms. And then with regard to whether you can carry a firearm, there are 2 categories: open carry, where everyone can see your gun, and concealed carry, where nobody can see it. So let's see what we're looking at. So first of all, let's take a look at which states require actual American citizens to register their firearms. There are 8 of them, as you can see from the chart I'm going to show in a moment. And those are California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, which is where Chicago, where all these events took place, is located, as well as Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York. And the chart will also show that those same 8 states require a license to purchase a gun, in addition to Colorado and Minnesota. Now, the thing to know about this is that gun laws are changing all the time because there's so much litigation over Second Amendment rights. For example, Maryland had a handgun qualification law, HQL, which required its residents to take a safety training course that actually included going to the gun range and firing the gun, and then passing, whatever kind of test you had to pass in connection with the classroom portion of the course. And it prohibited vendors from selling guns to residents that didn't have a valid license, and it required a background check by the Maryland State Police that could take upwards of 30 days before the resident was approved or denied for that handgun license, handgun qualification license. But a court has struck down that law, and now Maryland has appealed and is fighting to have that law upheld. So that's with regard to purchasing a gun and registering a gun. And we see that in 8 to 10 states, American citizens have to jump through hoops to own a handgun. So as we can also see from that chart, and as I mentioned, a distinction is made between concealed carry and open carry of a weapon. Pretty much every state required some kind of permit or license to conceal carry a gun. And then the same 8 states that required registration and a permit in order to purchase a gun just barred open carry altogether. Again, those are California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York. And then other states have rules, some have restrictions, some require this or that in order for open carry. But let us make a point here that pretty much all the states were requiring permits for concealed carry, but that illegal immigrant in that Illinois federal case clearly was engaging in a concealed carry, because he said that when the police stopped by, they said, if you have something, go get it. And he had already done so. That means the gun was concealed. He also said he pulled the gun from the pocket to fire it at the white vehicle. So he was concealed carrying without registering the gun, without any permit to conceal carry. And then he actually used the gun to fire at people who never fired at or posed a risk of threat to his life. But those charges were dismissed. For me, that's a problem. And I've also seen accounts online where people are saying they've been charged with traffic violations and they go to court and they're being held accountable for whatever violations they've engaged in, while they're seeing illegal immigrants come up and have charges dropped. They're driving without licenses, speeding, all kinds of stuff, but American citizens are having to toe the line, to comply with the law, to follow the rules, to jump through hoops. It's a problem. I'm not necessarily suggesting that a lawless society would be great where everybody just does any old thing they want to. What I'm saying is that people who are not citizens of our country, who are not obligated to comply with our laws and our rules, should not be granted more, because it's not even the same, more greater constitutional rights with regard to the Second Amendment right of gun ownership than actual American citizens. That just does not sit well with me at all. It is an absolute problem. And if you notice, this decision by this Judge Coleman was blasted all over mainstream media that illegal immigrants can own a gun. Okay? At a time when our country has more illegal immigrants than we can manage, that are taxing, overstressing our resources, overrunning our cities, and now you want to put the word out that they're allowed to own a gun and they're undocumented? And this judge thinks that illegal immigrants, or she said that that particular illegal immigrant did not pose a risk to public safety, but there's other people walking across the border willy-nilly. We don't know if they're criminals, felons, domestic abusers. We don't know anything about them, if they have mental health issues. These are all things that would prohibit an American citizen from being allowed to have a handgun. Let's take a look at that law. This law, as you'll see from the clip, prohibits anyone who has been convicted of a felony, that's a crime with an imprisonment term exceeding 1 year, who is a fugitive from justice, who is an unlawful user or addicted to any controlled substance, which are drugs, who, being an alien, is illegally or unlawfully in the United States, who has been discharged from the armed forces under dishonorable conditions, who has renounced their citizenship, and who is subject to a court order that restrains the person from harassing, stalking, threatening an intimate partner. That's getting at domestic violence, and includes a finding of, having a mental health disorder. So we've got all these restrictions, but as far as mainstream media makes it seem, illegal immigrants just walk across the border, have a gun, and this lady, this judge, dropping those charges against that illegal immigrant furthers that appearance. And let's face it, there are so many of them. The judge said that it should be analyzed on an individual basis. But let's face it, there are so many illegal immigrants here that there's no way to analyze on an individual basis whether each and every one of them fits or doesn't fit whatever the requirements are. They don't have any paper. We don't know who they are. They're willing to commit a crime by coming into the country illegally. We think they're gonna fess up and say who they are, and yeah, I was in jail in Venezuela, and yeah, I beat my wife all the time, and oh yeah, I'm addicted. Come on, it's ridiculous. In my mind, based on that court decision, in comparison with the requirements for American citizens who want to own and or carry and or use a gun, the illegal immigrant has been given more and greater constitutional Second Amendment rights than we have. And that's just a problem for me. Now, maybe I'm saying it wrong. Maybe I'm hypersensitive, because clearly these illegal immigrants are being given housing when we have a severe homelessness problem in America among American citizens, and in particular among our United States veterans. Okay, they're being given cash assistance that many struggling Americans cannot qualify for. They're being given food stamps in amounts much greater than American citizens or veterans are able to qualify for. And they're getting free health care, which almost all Americans could use, because our healthcare system is focused on profit and costs us a significant and tremendous amount of money when we have to interact with that system. But these people can just walk across the border and get free health care. It's a problem. It's a problem. I have a problem with it. I think that we're at a point where Americans have to just stop complaining and doing nothing. It is time to mobilize. That's all I'm going to say. It's time for Americans to mobilize and prevent our resources and our rights from being granted to illegal immigrants, and to prevent rights that we don't even have from being granted to illegal immigrants. But like I said, maybe I'm hypersensitive. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. I'm not taking the right approach or seeing it properly. So viewers, I ask you, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. And until the next video, stay safe out there, family. Peace and love and light.